Hey everyone, and welcome to Tactical Inc., your portal to the captivating realm of all things Lorcana. I'm Alex.
And I'm Bradley. Today we continue discussing the tactics and strategies from Ursula's return, and the ink color of the day is Sapphire.
We won't cover all the Sapphire cards from this set, just the ones we feel are the ones to impact the game, so please let us know in the comments if you feel like we've missed something.
So starting off, we have two common cards that we chose. And first is Aurora, Tranquil Princess. Aurora is a 2-cost inkable character with 1 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. She is a Dreamborn, hero, and princess, with the keyword ward. So Aurora can be pretty decent in the early game, especially since we have so many target removals in the early game with Brawl, Teeth and Ambitions, Mother Knows Best, Let Storm Rage On, and even late game with Madame Medusa and Let It Go. However, I believe her 1 lore is not really helping much. She still can be challenged by characters like Stitch Little Rocket and Madame M Fox to be wiped out early on as well. Since Sapphire is normally running a lot of items, I think I'd rather run Noi, Orphan Thief, a 1-2 that gets resist 1, and ward while you control an item. But he has 2 lore, which to me is a lot more useful.
Yeah, and that's what really sets her apart to me versus the earlier version of Aurora Regal Princess. Aurora Regal Princess really just has poor stats not having ward, but this one having ward will basically just keep her protected until you shift onto her, most likely on the next turn. So if either of Aurora's Floodborn shift characters become very playable in the future, this is probably the character that you want to use to shift onto. And the next common card we're going to take a look at is the item Ice Block. The Ice Block is a 1-ink item that is uninkable, and it has the ability Chilly Labor, which says exert this item, chosen character gets -1 strength this turn. This is proven to be a lot more effective than you would think at first glance. Most items like this you would probably just write off immediately, but this one pairs really well with a lot of Ruby's banishing effects such as Brawl, Madame Medusa, and most importantly, Sisu Empowered Sibling. Putting Ice Block together in the Ruby Sapphire deck with Sisu Empowered Sibling can enable you to wipe out some really powerful characters like Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, Beast Tragic Hero, and just even more than that. And it makes it to where Sisu can come in and absolutely wipe the board, whereas they might have been able to have a character left standing otherwise. And this being an item, it just further fuels Sapphire's item craziness.
Yeah, one of those cards that it helps fuel is Hiram Flaversham. Just in case you don't get your Popsicles, this can be a card for him to banish and get your draw engine going as well.
And Sapphire is even less concerned with uninkable cards than any other color, having Fishbone Quill that you could end up just inking this card if you need to as well.
Next up, we go to our uncommons, and we have 2. The first one is Scuttle, Expert on Humans. Scuttle is a 2-cost inkable character with 1 strength and 3 willpower, with 1 lore. He is a Storyborn and ally with the ability called Let Me See. It says, when you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Scuttle can be very useful in item decks to get to your Popsicles and your Fishbone Quills a lot faster. And honestly, he may be one of the better support cards for items out of this set. You can even pull off some of the bounce mechanics with cards like Madame M Fox or Madame M Snake to continue and activate his effect over and over.
Yeah, this is just proving even more to make Sapphire one of the strongest draw colors in the game right now. And the next uncommon card we'll look at is the item Great Stone Dragon, which is a 3-ink inkable item, and it has 2 abilities. The first is Asleep, which says this item enters play exerted. The second is Awaken, which says exert this item, put a character card from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted. So this is very comparable to Fishbone Quill, Mickey Mouse Detective, or Harder to Feedy, but really the one that you're comparing this to is Fishbone Quill, because that's what is played the most often, and overall I think Fishbone still is better. This is an interesting card though, And I have seen people run it sometimes because where it enters play exerted, it is a bit too slow. But once it gets going, you can get cards into your inkwell just completely for free without having to minimize your hand, which Fishbone Quill does. So in that way, it has an upside.
Yeah, and like you said, it is a little slow. I actually played it recently at a tournament, and I was running an aggro Amethyst Ruby deck, and I've seen people play it, and it just never got going because I was able to wipe them out too fast. Whereas players with Fishbone Quill, they were able to get going more often than this card. However, I love the upside where it doesn't deplete your hand. Alright, next up, we get to our rares, and we only chose one, and that is Triton, Discerning King. Triton is a 3-cost uninkable character with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. He is a Storyborn and King, with the ability Consigned to the Depths, which says, exert this character to banish one of your items you control. Gain 3 lore. So I love gaining lore outside of questing with things such like Goofy, Super Goof. However, this one just seems a little off for item decks, and the reason is, if you play Triton turn 3 and activate his ability turn 4, you won't be able to activate your Hiram Faversham unless you got multiple items, which is a key card in the item deck. And you need items for cards such like Tamatoa and Aerial Treasure Collector. So I feel like having multiple cards like Hiram and this card, removing your items, just hurts your game plan. And as we said in many videos before, characters with activated abilities for the most part are just too slow.
Yeah, the only good thing that I see with Triton Discerning King is if somehow you're able to pull off a crazy combo where you're readying him more than once a turn because he's not questing. So if you were to use, say, Shield of Virtue or LaFoe Instigator to ready him and banish multiple items, then you could be gaining 6 or more lore in one turn. Definitely makes him a little better in that way, but that's just a lot of setup, and that's not the way that Sapphire Ruby runs right now. I don't see that working. Purely looking at his stats doing 1 exertion per turn, I'd rather play a character like Prince Charming, Heir to the Throne, which is 1 ink more and is also inkable and just straight up gets you 3 lore, rather than going through all these hoops and banishing items. And you don't see Prince Charming seeing any play, so overall, I don't think this card's going to be a big hit, but it's interesting. And now we'll move on to the super rares. We have 3 that we had picked out here that's noteworthy. The first one is Anna Truehearted. Anna is a 4-ink inkable character with 2 strength and 4 willpower and 2 lore. She's a Dreamborn, hero, queen, and knight, and she has the ability Let Me Help You, which says whenever this character quests, your other hero characters get +1 lore this turn. That ability is really cool. The thing that is a big drawback for her is her stats. Being a 2/4, she's very banishable by things like Brawl and whatnot, but she could go really well in hero decks. If you want to check out one example, we just made a starter deck upgrade recently, and she's included in that. The hero deck can be a lot of fun to play, and I'm interested to see how it goes moving forward.
Next up is Aerial Treasure Hunter. She is a 6-cost uninkable character with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and 3 lore. She is a Storyborn, hero, and princess, with the keyword Ward. And she has the ability name, The Girl Who Has Everything. It says, while you have more items in play than each opponent, this character gets +2 lore. Ariel has an ability that increases her lore, similar to like Belle Strange but special and Alice Growing Girl. But what I like about Ariel that makes her better than the others is first, she has Ward, which makes her harder to remove, meaning you could possibly get 3 to 5 lore off next turn. And the second thing is that she already has 3 lore by herself without any help at all, meaning she can be deadly even without her effect kicking in. She does have a lower willpower, which makes her easier to deal with by challenges, but the value you can get from her outweighs the bad here.
Yeah, this is a card that I really love. It's one of my favorites from this set. She's just so powerful. You'll play her right along with Tamatoa. However, a lot of the time in Ruby Sapphire, you're not going to be playing her, or at least not many copies of her, because you have so many uninkables to choose from already. The deck that I do see this coming into play a lot more is Sapphire Steel, because you've got more room to play with in the uninkable area. And another plus with using Sapphire Steel with Aerial is that you're going to outpace Ruby Sapphire in terms of items most of the time, because you're running these cheap items like Fortisphere that Ruby does not have. You're running these cheap items like Fortisphere that Ruby doesn't have access to, so you can flood the board with items much easier.
Steel can also help my mirror matches with a lot of item removal with Benja, Guardian of the Dragon Gem, and I find them, I flatten them.
The final super rare card that we've chosen to look at is Aurora Lore Guardian. This is Aurora's second Floodborn that we've had in the game so far. Aurora is a 4-ink inkable character with 3 strength and 3 willpower and 2 lore. She is a Floodborn hero and princess with Shift 2, and she has 2 abilities. The first is Preserver, which says opponents can't choose your items for abilities or effects. And the second is Royal Inventory, which says to exert one of your items and look at the top card of your deck. Put it on either the top or bottom of your deck. So I haven't seen a lot of play of this card so far, but I have seen it a little bit. Being able to basically give your items a ward to where your opponent can't banish them with something like Benja or Beast Hardheaded, that can be pretty helpful, especially when you've got your Lucky Dime on the field. But also being able to exert your dumb items like Popsicle or Fortisphere to basically have a scry ability and look at the top card of your deck and make your deck more consistent for draws. That is pretty strong as well. So if you're going really hard into items, she can be something worth considering.
And I see her getting better over time, the more items could come out. We have a lot with items this set, and I don't believe that's going to slow down. And also, she has Shift 2, which if you notice, we don't have an Aurora that costs 1, but I think that's kind of intentional. And the reason is, if you have Aurora played on turn 2, and then turn 3 you play this Aurora, you have 1 ink left over, and you can start playing your Popsicle or whatever other low-cost item there, and it'll automatically have ward from there. And finally, we get to our legendaries, and we have 2 of them. First is the Queen Diviner. The Queen is a 3-cost inkable character with 3 strength and 3 willpower, with 1 lore. She is a Dreamborn, Villain, Queen, and Sorcerer with the ability Consult the Spellbook. It says, exert this character to look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item and put it into your hand. If that item costs 3 or less, you may play it for free instead, and it enters play exerted. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is a Scuttle, however it's only when it quests. And it can play cards for free, which is always devastating for opponents. I do like this card with LeFou Instigator, allowing her to activate her ability twice. But activated abilities, for the most part, are slow, so you need to protect her so she can quest. But I would prefer to run Scuttle over her, because he comes out a turn earlier and gets your items quicker.
And as far as getting your money's worth out of the Queen Diviner, to really find a 3-ink item rather than just like a 1-ink item like your Popsicles, the only one that you really are using most of the time is Fishbone Quill. Somebody might use something like the Sorcerer's Spellbook, but that's Sapphire Amethyst, which isn't played very often. And even then, there's only really a couple of viable items here to really get a lot of value out of the Queen right now. Maybe if we get some more 3-ink items that are really powerful, she could get better. But right now, I think Scuttle being faster is just a way better choice. This brings us to our final legendary card for Sapphire, which is Triton, Champion of Atlantica. Triton is a 9-ink inkable character who has 7 strength, 9 willpower, and 3 lore. He is a Floodborn and a king with Shift 6, and the ability Imposing Presence, which says opposing characters get -1 strength for each location you have in play. This is definitely a card to keep an eye on, even though he's not seeing play at all right now. His stats being a 7/9 is nothing to write off. Being able to play him on turn 6 is pretty powerful as well, and this ability, it just needs more locations that are really good to be playable. We've got McDuck Manor in Sapphire already, which is pretty good. We just really need some low-cost locations, I think, to really be able to flood the board with your locations and then play him. But Once you have several locations in play, this in a way is kind of like saying that all your characters get resist +1 or plus however many for the amount of locations you have, because all the opponent's characters are doing 1 less damage each time. So he's kind of similar to Cogsworth in that way. But another thing to consider is that he can be pretty powerful with Ruby, like with Sisu Empowered Sibling or Brawl. All these card effects that take advantage of opponents having low strength characters.
Yeah, and right now, when people are building decks, I'm only seeing very few locations, maybe at the max 4, and some decks not even having them at all. So right now, he's just not that great. But like you said, maybe in the future, we'll see more.
Yeah, and the other thing here is that if you start going into a location theme, you're going away from that item theme that Sapphire excels at right now. So it might take a while before we get to him. I'm sure at some point as the game progresses, we'll get to a place where he does see some play. And that's all for today. What Sapphire cards from Ursula's Return do you think will be the best? Leave us a comment to tell us below.
And be sure to follow us on social media to keep up to date with the latest Tactical Ink news. And also be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can tune in every week for a new episode of Tactical Ink.
See you next week.